What's up guys, this is Miasind, and this is not going to be an OCG metagame breakdown video, but I'm still going to be going over the two newer articles that Akira from Road of the King just posted, and this is going to be super fun, so let's get right into it, as soon as you smash the like and subscribe button. Okay, so first things first, we've got a 3v3 tournament in Tokyo. This is not the kind of thing that we really have in the TCG, like area championships. I don't really know what this means. Kind of feels like a giant regional or something, but winning team used 3 Goblin Bikers, very interesting, and I don't know if it's just me, but I'm pretty sure that the guy on the left is the guy that got 4th place at Worlds this year with Far King Snake Eyes. I might be wrong, but he really reminds me of him, so yeah, it might be him. That's really cool. Goblin Biker out of everything, and I'm pretty sure it's the exact same deck list card for each player. So 42 cards with, I believe, 13 hand shops. 3, 6, 7, 9, 10, 13, there you go. And then 2 called by a cross out, which technically could have been more hand shops. Then again, we see the exact same hand shop lineup, if I recall correctly. Yeah, 1 Ogre, 1 Veiler, 3 Furos main deck, 3 Ash, 3 Imperm, 42 cards again, and again, same thing. And I did click on the source just to double check. It is posted on their Twitter. It's exactly the same thing. It's really nice to see such a different deck do so well in the OCG. And I think I understand this deck is very difficult to counter. There's no, like, one card that really cripples the deck. And shockingly enough, Goblin Biker doesn't actually fold to Furos. It loses harder to Perolia than it loses to Furos. But the Fiendsmith engine, it loses to Furos, but not Perolia. So that's the reason why it's one of the best engines that you can play in the deck. In the TCG, this deck is a very good meta call, I think. It's a solid deck. Goblin Biker, Grand Imprisonment, that card's super cool. 13 hand shops and 42 cards. It's not enough going second, which is kind of like one of my issues. This deck is also super consistent, doesn't lose to Shifter. I've already mentioned this in the past. And we are seeing a heavily teched out side deck with 3 Sanctum, 3 Lancia and a Scythe, so he's ready for Raziel and for Malice. There's no other way for this deck to search Lancia, I don't believe so. And yeah, the Armored Xyz package in the Goblin Biker deck, you kind of have to for the Dark Knight Lancer, and you can Xyz summon on the opponent's turn, which is actually a good thing. So yeah, no, there's a lot of really cool things that you can do in Goblin Biker. I think it's a super fun deck. Maybe it's just a matter of time before this deck becomes better for them in the OCG. And oh, one thing that I forgot to mention, this is post Supreme Darkness, because we can see the inclusion of Abao Aku or something, the Lightless Shadow, the Link 4 monster, and it is an extremely good card. So the fact that Supreme Darkness is now out means that people can play a lot of different decks, but they kind of chose not to, so I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but again, Goblin Biker getting 1st place 3 times, literally all the teammates played the deck is really nice. This Raziel deck list doesn't really have anything special, other than the fact that it's main decking 3 Nibiru and 3 Ghost Bell. Ghost Bell is not the best card that you can play. Apart from that, it's fine. Nibiru is really good. Raziel with Drool and Logbird. No Molchami, again, because it conflicts. If you play Drool and Logbird, then you can't play Molchami. You might as well just not side it, because otherwise, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna side out a hand shop for another hand shop. It doesn't increase the amount of hand shops in your deck, so you still have the exact same likelihood game 1 and game 2 to stop your opponent. And we've already seen with our own eyes what happens when you only draw 1 hand shop against Raziel, and they play double call by and a cross out, so they have like a 33.76% chance of stomping your hand shop. And if it's your only one, then you lose the game, because their end board is still good enough to be so oppressive that if you don't draw other hand shops or board breakers along with it, you're going to be in a really bad position, which is the reason why we are seeing more board breakers now. Metal Chonius, Ultimate Slayer, super interesting. Metal Chonius, I think, is an extremely good card. And again, it's just a matter of time before this card will see even more play. So again, in mirror matches, this is one of the best board breakers you can play in Yu-Gi-Oh! Period. It's absolutely cracked. If your opponent summons Artifact Scythe against you, you can chain Metal Chonius, target the Scythe, and then summon Lancia, and then negate the Scythe. And Droplet is also not the best card out there. It's really neggy, and you need a lot of cards in hand to be able to beat Raziel going second. This deck list still chose to play it, because he also runs the Molchami 4-0, so he gets more card advantage, whereas this one is on Drool and Logbird, so he doesn't draw as much, doesn't have as many cards to spare. I agree with like both ways of doing this. It really makes a lot of sense. I'm really shocked to see that people are only playing 1 field spell and yeah, just only 1 field spell, but at the same time people are cutting Pot of Desires completely because they're playing 7th Ascension now, which again makes sense because you want to have as many copies of Artifact Lancia as possible. This card might very well be the MVP of the side deck in the OCG. It is literally what Shifter is against combo decks, but against Malice, because just like Malice obviously can't play Shifter, they literally fold to Artifact Lancia. It really cripples like most of their starters, and under Lancia, regardless of how good their hand is, they will usually not really be able to do anything at all with their engine. So all they can do is defend themselves with non-engine cards and hope that you can't kill them or overwhelm them, which is really hard to do considering the fact that if they have another 7th Ascension, they can search for Lancia again, and then every single turn they just Lancia you, Lancia yet. It's kind of like Flunderies, how they can loop the shifter with the no, not the Apex, with the Ryza. Once like they get the ball going once, it becomes impossible to keep up. Labyrinth, okay, this is not the kind of deck that I really recommend because it has a very bad Malice matchup. Very, very bad Malice matchup. I don't think this deck is going to be like a super good meta call, but it is relatively good against Raziel, as long as you have a way to stop the detonator, because otherwise if you start using all your traps going second, they just go detonator, pop another back row again and again and again and again, and the equation cannon is probably going to start seeing less play in Labyrinth, because what is there to banish? Like a detonator, maybe a field spell, Chaos Hunter instead of Artifact Lancia on the side deck. This is again another extremely good card against Malice, and very annoying to counter. They also can't go like SP banish it, so yeah, they pretty much have like no real ways of beating this card other than like Terahertz, send the Enigmaster Pack Bit, and then put it in the spell and trap zone. Raziel Board Breaker. This is completely different from what we've seen like up until now, because usually we always see at the very least Max C and Ash being played as hand traps. We're only seeing 10 monsters. It almost feels like a card of the Mice deck. This is insane. And then one field spell, one plug, and one hole thruster. Very minimalistic, I guess, engine of Raziel cards, but then we see both 7 Tachyon and Ascension being maxed out, with obviously the one bonfire, so that's 7, 10, 13, 16 one-card starters in a 40 card deck. The consistency level of this deck is off the charts, and then we're seeing so many board breakers that I actually think it starts making sense at one point. So 3 talent, 3 droplet, 3 thrust, 3 evenly, and just to make this deck not garbage going first, we're also playing 3 judgment, 3 strike, and a Blackout Laughs, which is the thrust target. No Imperm. Even though Imperm is also kind of like a board breaker, the reason I think that Imperm is not seeing play is just to decrease the likelihood of getting cooked by crossout. You don't want to give like too many live cards to your opponent, but then the crossout can still be used on like your engine cards because it's still a mirror match. But at least against a deck like Malice, you don't have to be afraid of their crossout. So I actually think it kind of makes sense not to play Imperm if you're dedicating your I guess your strategy to really just a full board breaker approach. It's really cool. I like it a lot, and even like an Ultimate Slayer as a thrust target. I absolutely love this kind of deck list, and I think that OCG players, TCG players, they are particularly fond of a board breaker approach, especially because we don't have Max C, so there's less good hand traps that you really have to play. Sometimes people are gonna do board breakers with like 1 or 2 hand traps, like maybe Mochimi, Furos, and Ash, just because Furos is kind of like the closest thing to Max C, and Ash is kind of like a Call by the Grave for the Max C, so it makes sense. But I guess if you can do that in the OCG, then you can definitely do this in the TCG as well. I also would have done 3 Ash for when I go first, just so I can negate these cards, but then again, he has a 3 thrust, which is pretty much the closest thing there is to that. 2 Ultimate Slayer, 3 D-Bear, as well as the Sanctum for the Scythe. If you get a hand trapped once, you can thrust into Sanctum and then Sanctum into Lancia, or Scythe or Lancia against Malice. Literally both options work. Memento is not super interesting here. There's nothing that is really worth covering. The trap card is not seeing play in the main deck, rather sided instead, and we're seeing Apophis the Swamp Deity as a rabbit target. So this card can negate evenly matched and stuff like that, because this deck is already very resilient through hand traps. The issue can be board breakers sometimes, and with an Omni Negate, then you no longer really have to be afraid of that. And we're also not seeing the Fiendsmith engine, which I find to be a little concerning, because I think that engine is super cracked. It is what it is. If you want to max out on non-engine cards, that is a respectable approach, because I know that with a Fiendsmith engine, you can play only like 13 non-engine in a 42 card deck. This is 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 15 maybe, I guess you can say. In 40 cards, that's probably a better ratio, right? Prosperity doesn't really count because going second, you're not really using Prosperity for like a hand shot, but whatever, you get the point. Going first, you can. Dragon Link, nothing really extraordinary, so I'm just gonna skip that one. Raziel, again, very boring, very standard. I'm just gonna skip that one again. Gaga Cowboy in the side deck. Anyone with a brain would have realized it was a joke. Labyrinth, again, very boring, very standard. Summon Limit main deck, and Dogmatica Punishment this time. Nobody really plays the Equation Cannon in the OCG. It's very interesting. Malice, this is like one of the only Malice deck lists that I've seen in this tournament. So yeah, Goblin Biker, Raziel, Labyrinth, Raziel, Memento, Dragon Link, Raziel, Centurion, Raziel, Labyrinth, and the one Malice was like at the very bottom actually, so yeah, it's a little shocking. I don't know, because I think this deck is really good, as we have seen clearly from the live reaction that I did yesterday on the OCG match, but it also has flaws going second, which I think is the biggest problem for Malice. Interesting tech choices of playing the EMP Meow Mine instead of the Code of Soul. I don't really know what Code of Soul brings to the deck, though. I really have to check out some combos. But the Meow Mine, I'm pretty sure that it just makes the deck better going second overall. And I mean, it's just a one-of though. So I don't even know if it's that relevant. I think this deck plays 17 non-engines, but I have to double check. 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20. Actually, if you include a Callby and Crossout. Yeah, it can play a lot of oppressive cards going second. Then again, going second, if you only draw one or two and they don't do enough, you're really gonna lose because the Malice engine itself is catastrophic going second into board like Raziel boards, because their half boards is still more than enough to cripple you. Like a detonator, a field spell is already too much. Sales ban in the side deck is like super interesting. I do have to double check what it does. It reads, declare one card name for the rest of the turn. Your opponent cannot activate cards or the effect of cards with the same original name as that declared card. The same restrictions apply to you, but for the rest of the duel instead of this turn. And you can only activate one sales ban per turn. So the goal is you activate sales ban going second. You call like a monster on the field, like a detonator. And then your opponent cannot use detonator for the rest of the turn. So you can start kind of breaking the board, and obviously you're not really going to be affected by that. It's a board breaker that kind of just deals with anything. That's about it. It's not super relevant. I guess it's a better prohibition. It's just like a cute niche card. It has a lot of potential. I think it's going to be good one day, but maybe not right now. But again, if this player chose to side deck the card, then it has to have some form of application somewhere. And very interesting choice of side decking the Molchamis instead of main decking them. And this is like the first time in a while that I see a Perolia being played in the OCG, because again, they could play 8 Max Cs and they still choose not to do it because most decks are just so good at beating the Max Cs that it doesn't really affect them that much. And by most deck, I'm really talking about Raziel. Raziel is the best deck in the game at just making a very good half board of Detonator Pass. That Detonator Pass is enough, I swear to God. If you give one draw to your opponent and you end on 3 interruptions, that's a lot of pressure. Voices voice. Again, we have the Ryugi or Apogeosis engine in the OCG, and they're still choosing not to play it. The engine brings a lot of breaks to your deck, and it means that you can play less non-engine cards, so I don't know if it's really worth it. But yeah, we're seeing, I think, 15 hand traps here. 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 13, and then, yeah, 3 pots. Whatever, it could have also been more hand traps. 3 pre-prep, I think that's kind of overkill. Personally, I would do 2. There's some nice deck lists that are running around in the TCG with Nadir Servant and stuff like that. Just more gas to turn this deck almost into like a, not really a combo deck, but a deck that has like natural ways of breaking boards going second. And maybe the pot cards are not necessarily the best way to do it, because then also you get rid of like the cards in your extra deck, which might be relevant sometimes. So the pot cards kind of conflict with the Nadir Servant, especially like Extravagance, like you can't draw, but Prosperity, same thing. They're really like the same. So Nadir Servant gets you a draw anyways because of Garura. So maybe Nadir Servant is like a better engine to play, but Ultimate Slayer in the side deck again. This card is really good in Voices Voice because your extra deck really doesn't matter for the most part. You only go into like 3 or 4 cards max. So it's really easy to be able to like send a Synchro, a Fusion, a Link, an Xyz. You got everything with Ultimate Slayer. You can cover so much ground. As a matter of fact, just if we look at the most recent OCG metagame breakdown, you can see Voices Voice is actually doing kind of decent. This is like, what, the 7th best top-performing deck? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. I don't think anyone really cares about Sky Striker unless your name is Ryan Yu. But yeah, this is board breaker version, obviously, with like some hand traps because you still need some ways of defending yourself. But if you make Sky Striker go first, man, they're really not going to have a lot of tools to defend themselves. So maybe it's not super ideal. Anyways, this one is a China City tournament that had 427 players. That's basically a regional. Yeah, but it's a 2-day event, and there's even a top 32 cut, which is interesting, but Supreme Darkness was unfortunately not allowed for this one. Raziel with 2 field spells and 2 desires. Again, we're seeing like the trends. This is still very standard, main deck summon limit, but it's not super spicy or anything. And by the way, I don't know if you guys have realized, but the rank 5 Archfiend Star Seraph, is it even an Archfiend monster? Archfiend Seraph, there we go. I can't believe I actually remember the name of the monster, but yeah, Archfiend Seraph, rank 5, that's how you reveal your Artifact Lancia, and, well, that's how you search your Lancia and your Scythe. And then you can go Tornado Dragon, pop your Scythe. Raziel again with a Pointer of the Red Lotus, which I cannot believe that this card exists, like, in the OCG. Because it really should, like, be banned, because in the TCG the card was banned, rightfully so. For some reason, nobody's really playing it. I don't know why. And this guy made, like, the decklist error. Interesting. Raziel, nothing extraordinary either. Raziel again, very boring, but a mix of hand traps and board breakers. I don't know why. And then Malice. Book of Eclipse is also good going first, so maybe you can kind of still mix it with with hand traps. So you know what? It actually kind of does make sense. And also, your monsters are all link monsters, so you don't even like hurt yourself when you Book of Eclipse on your opponent's turn when you went first. Raziel again. Okay, Solemn Strike main deck, and then Voice's Voice. Dominus Purge. Yeah, the last one didn't have Dominus Purge at all, huh? Yeah, so that's another hand trap that you could play if you really wanted to. It conflicts a little bit with some cards, but it's not too bad. So yeah, 2, 5, 8, 11, 14... It could have been 17 hand traps if we decided to cut like 1 pre-prep and 2 extravagance. That would have been 17 hand traps of the Prosperity, 2 pre-preps. The deck is still kind of consistent. The Raziel deck list was Sakitama, which is like the only extender that is, I guess, like not a Raziel card. If you have Sakitama and like a Mochami monster, you can still kind of combo, which is really cute. You can go to Duodrive because it's the generic one. Detonator is the one that requires like 2 Raziel monsters. And then you can search like your, I guess your sword, whatever your X, and like the fiat spell, and that still gets you to Detonator, a lot of follow-up, etc. So that's really cool. And then Raziel Voice's Voice is the most interesting thing I've seen so far. I really have to test it out, but it looks super cute. We're seeing maybe, actually not even a lot of normal summons because this is a free special. This might work, huh? 3, 6, 8, 11 hand traps and a talent in 41 cards and a lot of starters. Diviner and Novox and X and this, but also Nadir's Servant. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. Like, you might as well play like Bonfire and maybe not because it only searches 1 monster, and yeah, you can't really play the Eyes because the Eyes takes up your normal summon, and your normal summon wants to, like, you want to use them on your Novox and Diviner, but that's, like, super, super spicy. Wow, and this is also playing Dominus Purge in the side deck, which conflicts with the sword. So I really have no idea what this player was trying to do, but I guess kudos to you. And that's it for the deck list, but, you know, it's just a matter of time before people are going to start adapting to, like, playing board breakers instead of hand traps, but whatever. 3rd place in, like, the teams, I guess it was, like, the Raziel there. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you guys let me know how you feel about the OCG format in the comment section below. I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.